Hello students. Okay, today we are going to discuss, or more like I'm going to go through the answers for the Anglo Chinese School, Barker Road, Mid-Year Examination 2019, 4NT Paper 2 for the year 2019. Okay, so without further ado, let's get started. First off, the first question, okay, they are asking for the word equation for photosynthesis. Now, whenever you see this word equation, okay, what you need to do is recall what you have learned in class. Okay, basically, during photosynthesis, oxygen is produced. So this is definitely the keyword that we are looking for. Okay, in order to get this oxygen, you need carbon dioxide and water that is absorbed by the plants. Okay, and it must happen in the presence of chlorophyll. Okay, and sunlight. Okay, so for chlorophyll, please make sure you spell it correctly. CHLORO. L-O-R-O, sorry, I missed out an O here. CHLOROPHYLL. Okay, now sometimes you also see, other than word sugar, okay, you also see glucose, okay, as a possible word to replace sugar. Okay, so if you answer all three correctly, you get the 2 marks. If not, you get less than 1 mark or less. Okay, now for the second question, okay, suggest 2 ways that the farmer can remove pests from his crops. Okay, so the 2 ways, okay, we are talking about is actually to add pesticides, okay, which is chemicals, okay, or use biological control. Now, if you forgot this word or this term, biological control, you can always replace it with the phrase using natural enemies of the pest. Okay, so or natural predators of the pest. Okay, so that is also a good replacement for the word biological control. Otherwise, biological control will be sufficient. Okay, for part B, the increase in food production, fertilizers are used, okay, but they are actually washed in the water bodies, so fertilizers can lead to algae bloom. So what will happen, okay, during an algae bloom, okay, basically they will affect the aquatic life negatively. Okay, now there are a few key phrases that we are looking for in this particular answer. Okay, first off is the algae bloom actually blocks the sunlight from entering into the water bodies. Okay, once you have that down, okay, the next step is to also explain that the aquatic plants can no longer perform photosynthesis because of the lack of sunlight. And because of this, there is no oxygen form. Okay, and because there's no oxygen form, okay, you will actually end up with the aquatic life dying off because of the lack of oxygen. Okay, so there's no 2 ways about it. Okay, so just a recap, very quick recap again. Okay, when algae bloom happens, basically the algae will block off the sunlight from reaching into the body of water, so the aquatic plants will not be able to perform any photosynthesis. Once they cannot perform any photosynthesis, there will be a lack of oxygen in the water, and because of that, the plants will and the aquatic life will die. Okay, next up, part C. Okay, other than using fertilizers, what are the other ways that the farmer can yield better, can yield more from the crops? There are a few answers, okay, that is possible. Okay, so when I was trying out the question, okay, I thought of intensive farming methods as one of the answers. Okay, so you can actually name out, maybe use aeroponics or hydroponics, okay, as possible ones. Plant hormones to increase or promote the growth of the fruits, okay, or ripening of the fruits. Okay, what are the other possible ways that the farmer can actually use? Basically, think of the problems that a farmers will face. Okay, so using that in mind, okay, you can also suggest to use better seeds, okay, that grow faster and bigger. Okay, those genetically modified plants basically. Okay, and these genetically modified plants will also be resistant to diseases. Okay, they will survive harsh weather conditions as well. Okay, another possible answer would be to use herbicides to kill weeds so that the crops do not need to compete with others to obtain nutrients. So there are a lot of possible answers for this particular question. Okay, so basically think of the problems that the farmers might face. Okay, and from there get a suitable answer or propose a suitable answer from there. Okay, a lot of it you actually know the answers. Okay, so try out some of them, right? Now next up, question 3. Okay, for this question is actually very straightforward. First up is to find the amplitude. Okay, when we want to find the amplitude, there are two possible locations that we can look for. From the middle, okay, the rest position all the way to the highest point, or the rest position all the way to the lowest point. Okay, so these are two possible answers for amplitude. You just need to name one of them. Okay, but for this particular question, they are looking for two complete waves for L in part 2. Okay, so instead of having one complete wave, you need to have two. Okay, so remember the complete wave, what does it mean? Okay, complete wave means you must have two from crest to crest to crest. Okay, basically two complete peaks and two complete troughs. Okay, so if you start off from this crest, you must end off at the two crests away. Okay, if you start from this trough, okay, another possible answer, if you start from this trough, you must end off at this trough. This is also a possible answer for two complete waves. Okay, if you start from here, okay, so this is one complete wave, two complete wave. Okay, so there are a few possible answers that the teachers will be accepting, right? Okay, next, for question 4, match the purpose of the food additive, okay, to the food additive itself. Okay, so very simple answer. Okay, so you need to know your content basically. Okay, so sulfur dioxide, okay, basically will be used mainly for preservatives. Okay, for the okay, let me adjust the lighting so that you all can see clearer. For the calcium tablet, okay, basically the name already suggests calcium, okay, is actually a nutrient supplement here. Okay, this tablet itself. Okay, food coloring basically is to change the color, so it must be an appearance modifier. Okay, monosodium glutamate, okay, this is actually MSG. Okay, for those who have no idea what the full name actually meant, okay, commonly found in instant noodles, okay, as part of the flavoring. Okay, so it's actually a flavor modifier. Okay, the original idea of MSG was to replace salt. Okay, the scientists who invented the idea was to try to replace salt because salt was deemed as unhealthy at that point in time. Okay, but whatever it is, if you eat too much of the food additive, whether be it salt, MSG, food coloring, calcium tablet, sulfur dioxide, there will be implications, okay, which is actually highlighted in the later part of the question. Okay, for B part 1, how does vinegar actually preserve the food? Okay, basically vinegar will lower the pH. Okay, so do remember vinegar is actually a acid, so it will lower the pH of the food itself. Okay, so once it lowers the pH of the food, what does it actually do? Okay, so when you lower the pH of the food, you're basically changing the conditions of the surrounding of the food itself. Okay, so once you do that, okay, the microbes, okay, in this case might be bacteria, usually it's bacteria, okay, is either becoming inactive or killed off. Okay, so there are a few possible things that we are looking out for. Basically, you must tell us that you are changing the pH condition. Secondly, you must also identify that what it actually does. Okay, so in this case, it will kill off the bacteria itself or microbes. Okay, For part three, okay, part three is a bit how to say it requires you to remember what you have done in the lesson time. Okay, so I believe the teachers, Madam Sunati and myself, we have shown you this particular test. Okay, so when you react vinegar with metal, okay, you will definitely get salt and hydrogen gas. Okay, so if you've forgotten, please jot this down. Okay, acid plus metal will give you, okay, salt and hydrogen gas. Okay, and there is a specific test that we use to identify hydrogen gas. Okay, so what do? We basically get the lighted splint. That means a stick with some fire. There is still some fire on it. Okay, and once we put it over the exit point where the hydrogen gas will come out from, it will extinguish with a pop sound. Okay, so once you hear this pop sound, you basically be able to say that hydrogen is present. Okay. Okay, for the next question, we talk about pasteurization here. Okay, how pasteurization helps to prevent food spoilage. Okay, so for pasteurization, please remember, okay, pasteurization is actually a two-step process where you first raise the temperature, then after that it will lower the temperature. Okay, so this is one of the possible processes around. Okay, another pasteurization process would be just to raise the temperature, but raise it to the point before boiling. Okay, so that's the general idea. So whenever we raise the temperature of the food, okay, basically the bacteria inside the food will be killed off, or at least most of it. Okay, so you have to understand that this pasteurization, it does not guarantee that all the bacteria will be killed off. Okay, but it does, we can safely say that most of it will be killed off, okay, because of the temperature itself. Okay, so keyword here is actually many or most microbes will die. Okay, you cannot say all. Okay, cannot use the word all. Okay, name one possible food that is pasteurized. Any dairy product. Okay, you can actually use any dairy product. Milk, yogurt, cheese. Okay, are all possible answers here. Okay, for question 5. Okay, basically part A, part 1. Okay, they want you to recommend a food that is suitable for a diabetic patient. Okay, so do remember diabetic means lots of sugar in the blood. Okay, so once you know that there is lots of sugar in the blood, your objective is basically to reduce the amount of sugar that the person has to take in. Okay, so having that in mind, if you look at the data that is given, you notice that for sugars, okay, these two, 1 gram and 9 gram, plain cereal has a lower amount of sugar. Okay, also keep in mind that actually carbohydrates will eventually turn into simple sugar as well, so it will actually contribute to the diabetic problem. Okay, so we need to also look at the carbohydrates. So luckily for us, plain cereal, the carbohydrate is also lower than the chocolate cereal. Okay, so therefore the plain cereal is a better answer, or more like the better cereal for the patients. And because of that, why is it so? It's because it contains less carbohydrate and sugar. Okay, now for A part 2, how do we control, okay, other than using diet, how do we control the patients with diabetes? Okay, so for this particular question, you just have to suggest possible things. Okay, so the one that is given inside your textbook is exercise regularly. Okay, but some of us or some of you also know that for diabetes, there is type 1 and type 2 diabetes. Okay, so for the type 2 diabetes, which is actually type 1 diabetes, which is actually the type that most people would suffer from, basically is because of your diet. Due to the diet, you get type 1 diabetes. Okay, even if you are healthy, born healthy, you get type 1 diabetes if you don't control your diet well. okay? But there's also the type 2 diabetes, okay, which is basically you're born with diabetes, okay, due to the genetic heritage of the diabetes itself. Okay, so you are born with diabetes. So once you're born with diabetes, exercising regularly is not the answer. Okay, it will not be the only answer. So the other thing would be this thing to inject insulin. Okay, insulin is basically produced by our liver naturally. Okay, but if you have type 2 diabetes, basically you do not produce enough to control. That's why you need to inject insulin to help, okay, to assist. Yeah. Okay, next question. Okay, part B. Part B asks us to calculate the percentage daily value. So do keep in mind that percentage daily value basically means the amount that is present inside the food divided by the recommended amount times 100%. So that's the general formula. But in this question, there's this trick where they ask you for 2 servings of the plain cereal. 2, okay? So when there's 2 servings, you need to find out how much of this sodium is actually taken in by the person. Okay, so in this case, if you look carefully, the sodium is here. Sodium for the plain cereal, 270 milligrams. Okay, so if there are 2 servings, means I need to multiply by 2. So 270 multiplied by 2, I get 540. Okay, so calculating percentage daily value, 540 milligram divided by 2,400 milligram times 100%. Okay, so once you do that, you should be able to get 23% as the final answer. So for percentage daily value, keep it to whole numbers. Okay, there should not be any decimal places. All right. Next one, part C. Okay, this one is a bit tricky. If you have not pay attention during lesson time, you might have missed out this answer. Basically, vitamin C, its main task is to build up the immune system. Okay, but what else can it do? It prevent this disease called the scurvy, which is actually the bleeding of the gums. Okay, so historically, people did not know vitamin C plays such a huge role until the pirates or the sailors, every time they go out to sea and they come back, due to lack of vitamin C intake, they have bleeding of the gums. Okay, until they come back to land, when they start eating more food with vitamin C content, then that's where the bleeding of the gums stop. So through that, they actually discovered that vitamin C plays a very huge role in preventing scurvy. Okay, so this particular disease called scurvy. Okay, so suggest one food source that is rich in vitamin C. Any citric fruits will be the answer. Okay, so you can put oranges, grapefruits, okay, as possible answers. Okay, question 6, very straightforward. Question 6 is actually calculation of energy. Okay, so either you remember this formula, energy equals to power times time, okay, or power equals to energy divided by time. Basically, you should be able to manipulate this one formula quite well. Okay, but for this particular question, you want the energy to be in kilowatt hours, so power must be in kilowatts. Please take note. Okay, time must be in hours. Okay, so how do I get kilowatt? So every 1 kilowatt is equals to 1000 watts. So please keep this in mind if you have forgotten. Okay, part B, find the cost of electricity. Basically, you need to multiply the energy that is given. Okay, that you found. Okay, multiply by the rate. Okay, so in this case, it's actually 20 cents per kilowatt hour. So after you multiply, you get 30 cents. Okay, but do take note of the difference. Okay, over here. In this case, I'm calculating in terms of cents because this is what the question actually gives us. Cents per kilowatt hour. Okay, but the final answer actually wants us to present it in dollars. Okay, so unless you see something like this, otherwise you should keep it to cents. Okay, do not change the money, okay, unnecessarily. Okay, another thing to take note is for money, is always 2 decimal places for dollars. Okay. Okay, for question 7. Question 7a. Basically they are asking you what is this wire and what is this wire. Okay, what is R and what is Q. So you notice that wire R is connected to the fuse. Okay, so through our lessons we know that when a wire is connected to the fuse, basically it's a live wire. Okay, and if this is the earth wire, this will be the neutral wire. Okay, so how do we remember this? Okay, one way is to remember this way, north east line. Okay, neutral earth live, north east line. Okay, so this is one possible way that you can remember the content. Okay, how does the earth wire actually work? Okay, so this is actually something that you need to remember. Okay, so let me draw a very simple sketch for you to explain. Okay, before I show you this part again, later you can pause the video to get the answer. Okay, so I will explain it in general for many people here. Okay, basically for any appliance, okay, there is live and neutral wire that is present, okay, for it to work. So this one is under normal circumstances. Okay, so in this particular case, okay, or in many cases, the motor or heating element that is in the center here, okay, will be surrounded by metal. Okay, basically your metal casing. Okay, so why metal casing? Because metal is actually very hard, is difficult to bend and all that. Okay, so because of properties, that's why a lot of the appliances are using metal casing. So another example that you can think of is washing machine. Okay, but during a fault, okay, and in this case a very particular fault, okay, the live wire might be disconnected from the motor or whatsoever. Okay, and because of that it touches the metal casing. So once it touches the metal casing, if I am the user, I touch the metal casing itself, okay, I will get electric shock because the metal casing is now live. Okay, but now what do we have? Okay, to save us from the trouble, basically we have the earth wire. The earth wire will conduct the current away from the metal casing, and when I'm the user, I touch this part of the metal casing again, I will not get electrocuted or electric shock. Okay, so basically this is what my answer would be explaining. Okay, yep. So moving on. Okay, how does a fuse work? Okay, fuse generally, in fact all fuses will have this thing called the fuse rating. Okay, so if I have a 10 ampere fuse, for example, okay, I'll use over here 10 amperes. Okay, and if a current comes in that is less than 10 amperes, basically this fuse will continue to work as per normal. Okay, but once a current that comes in that is bigger than 10 amperes, maybe 10.1, 10.2, once that happens, when it comes in, okay, the fuse will melt and break. Okay, and because when it melt and break, it actually causes the circuit to be open and thereby preventing any flow of current to continue, okay, into the circuit. Okay, so another thing to take note is that fuse, you have to choose a fuse that is slightly bigger than what you actually need. So if the circuit itself actually needs maybe 10 amperes to work, then you should not be using a 10 ampere fuse. You should be using a 13 ampere fuse. Okay, so this is something that you should take note as well for fuses. Okay, so next question. What's my next question? Okay, next question, okay, is actually about breathing. Okay, so over here you have the respiratory system. Okay, you have the rib cage here, you have the diaphragm here, you have the bronchus as answer. Okay, so one thing to take note is the plural and singular term, especially for bronchus. Okay, because if you have if this line actually points to here and the other side, then it will be bronchi. Okay, so do take note of the spelling itself. Okay, wrong spelling will cause you to be at a disadvantage. Okay, next up, part B, how does choking occur? Okay, so there are a few things that you need to know. I do not know why this question is phrased this way. Basically, they've given you the answer that the structure A is a windpipe. But nevertheless, when we talk about choking, basically, there are a few things that will happen. First, okay, let's use the diagram as a reference. First, the food will get stuck at the windpipe. Okay, that's at the throat area, the starting of the windpipe. So once the food gets stuck at the windpipe, it prevents air from flowing in and out of the windpipe itself. Okay, so once it prevents air flowing in and out, basically the person cannot breathe. Okay, and they will actually die. So that's why choking is so dangerous. Okay, so if you look at the answer here, there is that I have written down. Okay, writing down blocking the windpipe is not enough. You also have to also explain how does this blocking, or what does this blocking of the windpipe actually do. So in this case, you have to mention that the blocking of the windpipe actually prevents the flow of air moving in and out of the windpipe, therefore causing choking. Okay, next up, question 9. Okay, one more thing, you have to write out all these answers in your own words. You have to get very used to writing out answers in your own words. Okay, question 9. Why doesn't the enzyme that is found in the stomach work well in the small intestine? Okay, so we know that the digestive system, okay, the places where we have the enzymes actually have slightly different conditions that they work with. Okay, so for the enzyme that work in the stomach, it actually works well at low pH. Okay, because the stomach is acidic. Okay, so once you bring this enzyme, okay, into a small intestine, it will not work well. Okay, so this is what you need to tell people. Okay, basically the enzyme in the stomach works in the low pH condition. Okay, and therefore it doesn't work well in the small intestine, because small intestine is not low pH. In fact, small intestine has a high pH. Okay, high pH. Okay, so it's an alkali system there. Okay, so this one please take note. Small intestine has a high pH, while the stomach has a low pH. Okay, and the mouth, okay, which is the other place that has enzyme. Okay, the mouth is actually slightly closer to neutral, but it's not exactly a neutral either. In fact, it's slightly alkali. Okay, part B. Okay, suggest why special type of enzyme cannot work in the human body. In this case, the bacteria that produces this special enzyme actually lives near the hot springs, okay, volcanic hot springs. So we know that hot springs, the temperature are quite high. So when we talk about it, the enzyme must be able to work at high temperatures. Okay, but in this case, when we bring it and let's say we try to use it on our human body, it will not work well. Okay, why? Because the temperature is actually, the temperature for this particular enzyme to work is actually too high as compared to the human body. So you need to mention that. Okay, so once it's too high, okay, the difference is too large. Okay, the basically the bacteria or the enzyme in this case will be inactive. Okay, so it will not die. Basically inactive means something like it hasn't wake up yet. Okay, so that's what we are trying to refer here. Okay, question 10. This person C actually consumes very little protein. Okay, so recommend some food that has protein in it. Very simple. Any type of meat will be the answer. Eggs can be a possible answer as well. Soya beans as well. Okay, so just name any possible answer, okay, that I suggested. Okay, A part 2. Down here, these other substance that has a very low intake in C is this particular thing, which they mention as fiber. Okay, so I actually wrote down as fiber because of the question here, but in reality it's actually dietary fiber. Okay, ARY. Okay, so there is a lot of type of fibers out there, so I think, okay, I would suggest you all write as dietary fiber to make it very clear that the question actually wants dietary fiber. Okay, so if you do not have enough dietary fiber, basically constipation will take place. Okay, same for lack of water, it may lead to constipation as well. Okay, part B, when you talk about balanced diet, okay, so what is a balanced diet? Basically, a balanced diet is a diet that has nutrients in the correct proportions and amounts to keep a person fit and healthy. So there are two parts here. First part is talking about nutrients in the correct proportions. Okay, so what do we correct proportion and amount? Okay, what do we mean by this? Basically, if you think about fats and carbohydrates again, we cannot take the same amount of fats and carbohydrates at the same time. Meaning, if I need 10 grams of carbohydrates to survive, I should not be taking 10 grams of fat at the same time. Okay, we know that fats should be taken in small amounts. Okay, so that's why the correct proportion amounts. Okay, but why balanced diet? Basically, we want to keep the person fit and healthy so that they don't fall sick. Okay, so part C, okay, be very careful what they are mentioning here. They are actually talking about over dieting. Okay, so they are asking for two dangers of the over dieting. So there are actually 7 possible answers here. Okay, so you just need to name any 2 of them. Okay, so what are the 7 possible answers? Malnutrition, suffer from osteoporosis, okay, excessive weight loss, hair loss, infertility, heart failure, low blood pressure, low tolerance to cold, as well as death as a possibility. Okay, so think of, if you think of over dieting, want to find out the answer for over dieting, always think of a person who is very skinny. Okay, what would likely happen to them? Okay, so you should be able to get the answer from there. Okay, so fatigue and all that are all possible answers. Okay, question 11. Okay, in this question, you have to be very careful because they actually mentioned 2 different things. Okay, first thing that they mentioned is actually this person, Jackson, took a vaccine for measles. So we know that vaccines is only for viral infections. So please take note, vaccines is only for viral. Okay, while on the other hand, after returning from US, this Jackson's contracted a cough and sore throat. Okay, a little bit, sounds a little bit like the COVID. Okay, but we don't know. But the doctor actually prescribed him antibiotics. Okay, so once the doctor prescribed antibiotics, antibiotics can only tackle bacteria. Okay, I repeat again, antibiotics can only tackle bacteria. Okay, so once we know that, okay, then this will be the answer here. Okay, part B, explain why it's important for Jackson to complete his entire course of antibiotics. I wrote it in a very negative way, which is actually what is presented in your textbook, the way that is presented in your textbook. Basically, if you do not, they say if, okay, if you do not complete the course of antibiotics, what will happen? Okay, so basically, if you do not complete, the bacteria will not be fully killed. If the bacteria is not fully killed, then it might cause you to get sick again. Okay, and basically the bacteria can gain immunity and become stronger. Okay, but there's also another way to say all this, or suggest an answer. You just need to tell me that the objective of the antibiotics is to kill all the bacteria. Okay, and basically if he completes it, okay, if he completes it, you'll kill all the bacteria and you prevent the bacteria from becoming stronger or multiplying. Okay, next. Okay, in this question 12, okay, there are 2 particular lines that you need to draw. Okay, first line is actually this one, A, based on this data that is given up here. Okay, the other one will be B, Okay, so for this one, I would suggest you complete one line at a time. Okay, so that you don't get confused. So basically what I did was I plotted A first. I finished plotting A, then followed by I finished to plot B. Okay, so please keep that in mind. Do not plot everything at one go and in the end you got confused yourself. Okay, so once you do this correctly, okay, you should be able to get these points, okay, very clearly. Yeah, okay, and the next would be answering the next part of the question. Okay, I shall put this to one side so that you can see. Okay, so the next part of the question is asking you to find the output voltage of A when the input voltage is 70 volts. Did I see wrongly? Sorry, I see wrongly. My answer should not be 88 volts. Okay, in fact, my answer should be 18 volts. Okay, so how do I get 18 volts? Basically, you find out where is 70 volts in the input value. So input voltage is here, 70 volts goes up to here for A. Okay, that's why you have to read the question very carefully, right? So after you go up to here, okay, you take your ruler, okay, and bring it across, okay, to find out what's the Y value. Okay, so you notice that this is 18 volts. Okay, yeah. So next up, state the type of transformer, okay, for these two A and B. Okay, so you notice that for a large value, for example down here, let's talk about maybe 100 volts. No, let's talk about 70 volts again. Okay, so if I put in 70 volts, okay, my transformer A will give me 18 volts. So I put in 70 volt, I get back 18 volts. So this tells us that transformer A is actually a step down transformer. Okay, so please put a dash between step and down. Okay, next, if I put in 70 volts, I actually get 88 volts for transformer B. So this tells us that this is a step up. My voltage basically increases. Okay, so that's why your answer is these two. Okay, and last but not least, okay, the last question here, explain why electricity is transmitted at high voltage. Okay, so I've written down two versions of the answer. Basically, you need to mention a few things. Okay, first of all, the whole idea is to reduce energy loss as heat during the transmission itself. Okay, so I'll suggest this second answer as the one that you should be writing. Okay, so when you transmit electricity at high voltage, your current will become low. So please keep this in mind. High V, okay, high voltage, low current. Okay, why low current is good? Because low current actually reduces heat loss. Okay, reduces heat loss during the transmission. Okay, so you have to remember current, and current is related to heat. Okay, so something that maybe you want to jot down. Okay, current produces heat. Okay, so if this current reduces, heat also reduces. Okay, so once you have that down, you should be able to get your answers. Okay, so thank you everyone. I'll see you all again in the next explanation video for another paper. Thank you.